Over the past 2 decades, I've spent a lot of time in airports and airplanes, traveling to dozens of countries, meeting and interviews. We talked about earlier, Maggie, meeting persecuted Christians, not to mention all the flying across Canada, speaking in churches. Now, most of the time I fly in coach or economy, or as a friend of mine said, the cattle section. But the odd time, I get to move up to first class, and it's great. So instead of the peanuts and the pretzels, or no food at all, you get real food. Well, pursuing a first-class marriage, Pastor...
I was wondering where the marriage part was coming in.
Yeah, like, what
do
do I need counseling because I spent too much time in airports? Well, Pastor Michael Thiessen uses the flying metaphor as a backdrop to inviting young adults and parents to have a discussion about having meaningful dating or courtships. Now, over the next few minutes, we're going to use those metaphors in talking about how to have a first-class marriage. Michael Thiessen is the senior pastor of Grace Baptist Church in Allison, Ontario. He's married to Sarah and has 4 healthy children. Michael, welcome to 100 Huntley Street.
Thanks so much, Greg and Maggie, for having me. This is great.
Now, before we get going into the book here, I said 4 healthy children.
Yeah.
As I was reading your bio and your story, what really caught me, and as a parent, and I know Maggie feels the same way, you had a sick child.
Yeah, so my wife and I were actually serving as missionaries in Mozambique, Africa. We were in Maputo, the capital city, and our second son, Gabriel, was diagnosed there with childhood liver cancer. And so his cancer and our return to Canada gave me an opportunity to do 2 things: to really reflect on how much I appreciated my lovely wife, Sarah, and all of the ways that she was enduring this hardship with me, and how wonderful our marriage was in supporting us through that. And secondly, it gave me time to write. So I was sitting up with Gabriel. I was doing the night shift, Sarah was doing the day shift, and it just allowed me time to start putting together this manuscript for the book.
I mean, obviously at that point, you don't know how it's all going to turn out.
Yeah, Gabriel is 10 years old. He's fantastic, and he's actually here in the
I met him in the green room. He's a
with
cool
his older
kid.
brother Simon,
yeah.
And we have 4 great kids. Mela and Galilee are back home with Sarah, but Gabe's just healthy and strong. So we're just thanking the Lord. He did so much work. So many people prayed. It was actually a strangely exciting journey to watch what God did in that situation.
And so as you said, God gave you this book. And why write a book for young people about marriage?
Yeah, so I have pastored young adults and ministered with parents and their kids for a number of years. And a few common questions, Greg, you alluded to in the intro, a few common questions come up regularly, like what is a parent's job or role in helping their young adults find a healthy marriage? And then secondly, a lot of young people just coming and asking the question, what's so wrong with the hookup culture? What is so wrong with just tasting and seeing everything that's out there? So I have some strong opinions about answering that culture and wanted to lay it out in the book.
Yeah, so let's hear those opinions. Because you say that, you were one of those kids that other parents would say, do not hang out with Michael.
Yeah, I share that a little bit in the introduction, for sure.
So how all of a sudden now you're writing a marriage book? How did that happen?
Yeah, so the vision for the book started with my sisters and I watching a whole bunch of romantic comedies. And at one point, this equation kept coming up, and we see it in kind of all modern sitcoms / romantic comedies that come out. You see that there's this bouncing back and forth journey that people are on, and the writers then always have to resolve it with marriage. And so I started investigating this idea of what is biblical marriage? What does it look like? And why is it so confusing for us to get there that writers get to have fun with these characters and then finally they have to solve it? No one can walk away without people feeling this commitment and this faithful love to another person. So kind of went from this pop culture, hey, what's going on there where they keep resolving this thing, to actually what does the Bible say about what marriage is, and then how would I prepare to get there?
So let's go through it. So first you have check-in.
Yeah, so basically my first chapter is about encouraging young people to check their minds in and to invest for the future. I have I have a few nieces and nephews that just in email conversations, we went back and forth, and I kind of went and reread some of those. And what I was saying to them as young adults is, you've got to invest in your marriage long before you ever get there. So check in. And of course, that started this whole framework of the airport metaphor. If I'm going to check my brain in, and then I started thinking things through. Well, the next thing after check-in that I would get to would be security gates, where people would take away harmful ideas and harmful thoughts. And then at some point, I would want to actually talk about what it would look like to lounge and be in flight and actually have to engage in dating or courtship. And then baggage claims. A lot of young people get to marriage and they've got all of this sexual and emotional baggage.
Yeah.
And how do you start off a healthy marriage and deal with some of that? And then of course, arrivals became this chapter that I got to describe God's view of a healthy marriage. So now that we're here and we've arrived, what does it look like for the next 50 centuries?
I mean, we're going so against, I often talk about the kingdom of God as being an alien culture,
Yeah.
or an alternate culture as well, because it so goes in the face of what the culture is saying,
Yeah.
the programs like Friends, hey, just have some fun
Yeah.
and hook up and that.
Yeah.
And so that's the culture that we're trying to fight against. And so what kind of results are you seeing, as a young adults pastor? My wife Arlene and I back in Alberta, that's what we're doing in our church.
Yeah.
How have you seen some of the things that you're teaching in the book and your experiences you're bringing to these young people? How is that? Is it penetrating, or is it feel like you're going uphill all the time?
I'm going to answer your question with an answer to a question you and I were talking about earlier when we were just getting to know one another. You talked to me about how do parents get engaged with their young adults? And I think the one thing that has been the clearest for me is that when we give our young people a grand vision of marriage and a biblical vision of marriage, it becomes less about parents saying, oh, you can't date till you're 16, or you can't do this, or you can't do this. And it becomes more about saying, what are the goals that you have as a young Christian, as a Christ follower, as someone who wants to be pure? What are your goals, and then how do we achieve them? So the thing that I've seen is that young people who engage with that question, what am I shooting for, in a Christian manner with a biblical worldview, then all of a sudden you're not arguing about the little things. You're not arguing, well, do I date when, can I go out with that guy? Well, you're more negotiating do you want to go with that? Why would you go out with that person based upon these things that we've given you a vision for?
So you're asking them, you're trying to engage your children as they're getting older and into that dating stage, or not dating at all.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can ask the questions, because I've seen, many Christian parents, as we all know, have really had a struggle with their kids saying, no, I've been in the church, but either I'm rejecting it or I will choose. And then what do we stay away from being the nagging parent of kind of trying to force it on them?
Yeah, and also accepting the like you said, the world's view of dating. Dating is date really young, get married really late. So
Yeah.
like start when you're 14, don't get married till you're 25, 28, get all your university done. And I just sit with young people and I say, do the math. 14 years of experimentation, and you're telling me you're not gonna gather baggage? It's the wrong philosophy. We need to give our young people a better perspective of how we get to marriage.
Are you finding that young people want to get married? Because in a hookup culture, it's like instant gratification right away. Why would I want to be attached to somebody for the rest of my life when I could have my choice of anybody at any time?
Yeah, I don't know if I could say that I am finding anything particularly, because this is an ongoing conversation and a relatively new conversation with the book. But what I am finding is that, again, when you engage young adults, not on the peripheral little, the peripheral little statements, but you're engaging them on, well, are you finding happiness in what you're doing? And here is an alternative perspective. Yeah, I think I think Christian young adults are hungry for a more verbose worldview. I think that's actually one of the reasons why we're seeing young people walk away from the church, is because we need to give them a grander vision of what's next. And they're hitting university and going, I don't really know what's next. So, and
Now-
how that incorporates with my faith.
You are now teaching some of this material, and I'm hoping to have you come to my church out in Alberta, but you've got something coming up?
Yeah, so MBC, which is up in the beautiful Mary Lake in the Muskokas, MBC is having a March break event called Family Fusion, and they're allowing me to come and unpack some of the teaching from the book. That's on March 12th to 15th, and excited to share that with you. Anybody can come. We'd love to have more people come. It's going to be a great week.
And you're on YouTube. I went on YouTube, and
Yeah.
you're at the Pearson Airport in Toronto and kind of using the analogy. So congratulations, Michael, on an excellent book. And I'm looking forward to getting really into this and bringing it to our young adults and my young adults at home.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
The book is called Pursuing a First-Class Marriage, Find the One Without Trying Many. Thanks again.